are going to hear from one of our pioneers and a true giant, someone who's been an inspiration to many of us for a long time. And that, of course, is Dr. John Slaughter, who is currently at the University of Southern California. John, please.
Thank you very much, Lydia. I'm very happy to join this workshop, and I'm very proud of what CEOS is doing to help make us recognize the importance of increasing persons from underrepresented groups who can become leaders in science and technology fields. It could be said that leadership in any field is the product of innate ability, strong preparation, and good fortune. In my case, the latter profoundly outweighs any presence or influence of the other two. I began my professional career as a newly minted electrical engineer working in the aircraft industry during its heyday in Southern California. I had harbored a desire to become an engineer since junior high days because I loved to design and build things. It was my intent at the time to continue to design and build things for the rest of my working days. I had no aspirations for leadership. In fact, I had never even thought of it. For an African-American boy in Topeka, Kansas, the desire to become an engineer was presumptuous enough that the idea of ever becoming a leader in the profession would be considered nothing short of lunacy. And designing and building things is what I did during the first 5 or 6 years of my career, while pursuing and completing a master's degree at the same time. During my master's studies, I became interested in the field of automatic control systems. An opportunity opened for me to join a Navy research and development laboratory in San Diego, California, where I was assigned to lead an effort to implement a control system in which a general purpose digital computer controlled the operations. I had the good fortune to assemble a small group of talented engineers and technicians to assist me. The result of our efforts turned out to be groundbreaking. That was largely due to the fact that we were one of the very few institutions at the time that had a general purpose computer available that could be used for experimental R&D purposes. That experience was the first realization that I had that I enjoyed working with people as much as I did working with things. It led to increased leadership opportunities. First, as the founder and head of a division focused on the design and development of digital control systems for the Navy. And later, as head of an information technology department, in which the control system division was a component. All the while, I was completing a doctorate in engineering science. By the way, it is a fact that in 1971, I was one of only 2 African Americans in the US who received a PhD in engineering. Throughout my doctoral education journey, I benefited immensely from the support and encouragement of my supervisors and my colleagues. Throughout the process, the laboratory provided the resources and afforded me the time to complete my studies. In addition to my academic studies, I devoured texts on management and leadership by authors like Peter Drucker and Warren Bennis. After 4 years as department head, I was offered and accepted a position as the director of a federal government-supported university R&D laboratory devoted to oceanographic research, Arctic exploration, and the design and development of underwater vehicles. That led to a call from the Carter administration for me to serve as an assistant director at the National Science Foundation. Subsequent leadership positions included academic vice president and provost at Washington State University, director of NSF, chancellor of the University of Maryland College Park, president of Occidental College in Los Angeles, and finally, president of the National Action Council for Minorities in Engineering, NACME, an organization dedicated to increasing the numbers of African American, Latino/Latina, and Indigenous men and women in engineering and science-related education and employment. In each of these positions, I have become painfully aware of the paucity of members of these groups in their presence, and especially in positions of responsibility in the STEM fields. Like all of you, I know the reasons for this. A major reason is the failure of our systems of education at all levels to account for the histories of exclusion of these groups, in which they were denied access to the opportunities and assets of a quality educational experience. Overcoming this is often a gargantuan task requiring energy and sacrifice to encounter and overcome the barriers that are all too often placed in the path leading to success. In my most recent positions, I have developed a concern about the lack of commitment of many of our nation's most prestigious higher education institutions to rise above the lofty rhetoric and meaningfully address the relative absence of underrepresented groups on their faculties, especially in the STEM disciplines. A 2019 study published by the Hispanic Journal of Law and Policy, based on federal data from 2013 to 2017, showed that little progress has been made in diversifying college and university faculties over that 4-year period of time, particularly in those institutions that are research intensive. The study showed that tenured and tenure track African American faculty grew by only 0.1% to a total of 4%. Latinos/Latinas increased by 0.64%, to a total of 4.6%, and women by 1.7% to 30%. These numbers support what Willie Pearson had just said about the need to increase the diversification of our college, university faculties in STEM. Given that these numbers represent faculty in all fields and disciplines, and given the history and state of the presence of persons from underrepresented groups on our science and engineering faculties, it is not difficult to recognize that the growth in STEM faculty from these groups is likely to be even lesser. The dearth of Black, brown, women, and Indigenous persons on the faculties of our major research universities is, in my opinion, higher education's Achilles heels and shame, because these are the institutions from which potential leaders are expected to emerge. Those students from groups that have been historically underrepresented benefit from the presence of a diverse set of faculty members to help many of them overcome a sense that they may not belong, the so-called imposter syndrome. In fact, all students, including those who are white, benefit in many ways from the presence of a diverse faculty. The pipeline is not full enough. The excuse that science and engineering search committees have often used has become trite and no longer as true as it once may have been. If America is to retain a prominent role in the competitive world of science and technology, no one should face impediments to an equal opportunity for a high quality science and engineering education. Other countries are exceeding us in science and math performance at the elementary and secondary school levels, and are creating STEM infrastructures that allow them to challenge us in innovating, developing, and creating technological artifacts. It is important that we recognize those organizations that support the education and development of minority and women STEM students, tomorrow's science and engineering leaders. Organizations such as NACME, the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE, the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, SHIP, the American Indian Science and Engineering Society, ACES, and Women in Science and Engineering, WISE. We should also recognize the important roles of organizations such as the Career Communications Group, the founding entity of the Black Engineer of the Year Award program, and the Great Minds in STEM program that is doing so much to recognize and support Hispanic and Latino/Latina students and professionals in science and engineering. We can no longer deny the importance of developing a cadre of strong science and engineering leaders that look like America. To a large extent, the future of our country depends upon it. Thank you very much.
That reminds us both of how far we've come and how far we have to go.